About Marcus. Always. But what they'll never understand is this: sometimes the fire is the only thing that forges steel. Daddy, he whispered, tears pricking his eyes. Don't flatter yourself, I said. You were just sloppy. I just happened to be watching. Everything's on record. They're ours. He faked mental illness to avoid jail? Coward. He's asking about you. I missed you too, I said. More than anything. I need to talk, she said. I thought you might need this, she said, setting one down. You look like hell. I'm glad you're back in his life. I'm trying. Not enough. If you're gonna take on the system that burned you, you can't just try. You have to outlive it. Of course it was. That's why it hurts so much. Once a liar, always a liar. She's right, I replied gently. But I'm always busy thinking about you. Some of you think you know me, I began. And maybe you do. Maybe I was broken. Maybe I did drown myself in liquor and lies. Maybe I did fake it to survive. Tell me again why you walked away, she prompted gently. The board's almost done with him. He'll walk away disgraced, just like we planned. They posted your sealed case file, she said. Online. Everything. Rehab. The suicide watch. The fake DUI. All of it. To deception, I said, loud enough for every microphone and every guest to hear. May it be short-lived. Typical addict trying to play the hero. Was any of it real? She asked. We know what you're doing. Stop. Yes, Special Agent Ramirez said flatly. And we know exactly how they launder money through interstate construction permits. Thanks to your cousin. You came all this way to talk? You son of a bitch, he hissed. You're really doing it, she said. You've made a mistake, he told the agents. Do you even know who my family is? About what it cost to come back. Adrian and Cassandra were offered deals in exchange for testimony. Victor, not so lucky. His operation stretched into international bribery and racketeering. He'd be wearing orange for the rest of his natural life. Adrian reached for his phone, already jammed. Adrian tried to bluff. Of course he did. Adrian's face snapped toward mine. Adrian, smirking. And about what I was building now, not to destroy them, but to replace what they corrupted. And in that choice, I found redemption, not in ashes, but in the blossoming of something real and enduring, a legacy of integrity, resilience, and unbreakable love. And that was just the start. And that's when the leak hit. And the doors burst open. And the first move in a war no one but me knew had already begun. And the people behind it? And then I saw it. And they didn't know every meeting, every whisper, every forged document was being funneled into a federal case with their names at the center. And with them, I wasn't just rebuilding a company. At night, I sometimes wondered if he'd hate me when he read it. At the park bench, he hugged his stuffed fox, Foxy. I watched as he traced its fabric paws with a finger. Mommy says you're busy, he said, eyes downcast. Back in college, we called her the engineer with a poet's brain. We had worked together once before Victor blacklisted her. She was too sharp, too ethical. A liability in their world. So they buried her. Because the more I unraveled, the more confident they became. Adrian started showing up in meetings I hadn't invited him to. My wife, Cassandra, stopped pretending to be discreet. And Victor Delane, the man who taught me everything I knew about the business? He started calling me son again, like a eulogy in progress. Better. But I still needed one last piece. Something that would make the agents act. But let me back up. But Marcus wasn't a weapon. He was a child. And I would not let him be used again. But the damage wasn't just professional. It was personal. But the past doesn't stay buried. But then I remembered what mattered most, not being remembered, but doing right by him, even if it meant walking away. By the end of the night, our inbox was full. By the end of the year, Fourth Axis had filed 5 patents. We launched open-source encryption tech that made it impossible for third-party entities to scrape private data from wearable health monitors. Cassandra didn't move. She stood still in her silver dress, watching me like I was a stranger in her dream-turned-nightmare. Cassandra finally moved. She walked toward me, heels clicking through broken glass, her voice soft but bitter. Cassandra stood there. Hair pulled back. Rain in her eyes. Cassandra watched from afar. She sent a tentative email. Cassandra's words echoed in my mind, he's asking about you. Cassandra whispering something into Adrian's ear. Federal agents swarmed the ballroom like a flood breaking through a dam, guns drawn, voices booming, radios crackling. Some guests screamed, others froze. Wine spilled, champagne flutes shattered, and beneath the crystal chandeliers of the Exeter Hotel, 3 lives fell apart in real time. 5 months ago, I was the CEO of one of the fastest-growing infrastructure firms on the East Coast. We had federal contracts, international partnerships, and a spotless reputation. Or so I thought. From people. Thousands of micro-investments. Former engineers. Single moms. Veterans. A retired teacher from Denver who'd lost his pension in a shell company tied to Victor Bellamy. He looked up, studying my face. Why did you leave? He nodded as though he understood far more than his 8-year-old years allowed. Will you stay? He smiled, the kind of smile that stitches up a man's soul. Okay. His small face pressed to my chest. I miss you. I chose love over revenge's empty roar. I close my eyes and inhale. The scent of paper, of ink, of possibility. I closed my laptop. The glow retreated, leaving the room dark except for the street lamps. Leah's silhouette slipped inside silently, holding 2 steaming mugs. I closed the screen. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Confrontation is for people who don't know how to wait. I didn't hear the glass break, I felt it. I didn't move. I didn't stay to watch the full arrests. There was no need to savor the spectacle. My job wasn't to gloat. I drained the coffee. Let them talk. It's time I stopped hiding in the shadows. I drew a breath. This moment was inevitable. Because some people did bad things and I needed to make sure you'd be safe. I took his hand. But I made a promise to you and I'm here to keep it. I dug her back up. I handed her a folder. I held him tight. Hey, buddy. I kiss his forehead. Love you too, bud. I lie beside him, watching his chest rise and fall. He drifts off, murmuring, love you, Dad. I made my choice. I named it Fourth Axis. I nodded. I'm here to pick up Marcus. I nodded. Tomorrow, I go to his school. My voice cracked on the words. I'll pick him up early, take him somewhere, safe. I opened it. I paused. I reclaimed my life. I replied simply. I sat in my office for hours staring at a comment thread under a viral post. I sat on a small plastic chair in the hallway, heart pounding. When the door opened, he strode out, 5 feet tall, dark curls tousled, backpack slung low. He spotted me, froze, then burst forward. Throwing his arms around me, he wrapped me in a hug I'll never forget. I sat on the floor. No furniture yet. Just me, a bottle of water, and the blueprints. I stared at the mug. Because if I fought for custody, it would have been a war. A war the kid would live inside. He'd grow up in courtrooms, lawyers parading his traumas as evidence. He'd be collateral damage. I paused. I wanted to protect him from them and from me. I stepped off the stage, calm, composed, not a trace of the trembling drunk I had pretended to be for the last 2 months. An agent took my arm briefly, pretending to escort me out. He leaned close. I swallowed. Yes. I'm here now. And until you don't want me, I'm not going anywhere. I thought vengeance would feel like a conclusion. I told the truth. About everything. About Victor. About Cassandra. About Marcus. I took the coffee without looking, inhaling the bitterness. It's not insomnia, I said. It's decision. I wanted escape. I was building a resistance. I was just building again. I wasn't clearing my name. I was reclaiming it. I wrote late into the night, pouring every truth he needed, why I'd walked away, how much I loved him, and the path I'd paved for his future. I told him about Fourth Axis, not as a boast, but as a lesson in integrity, resilience, and the power of rebuilding better. I'd read them all. I'm very good at waiting. In the lobby, little faces pressed to bulletin boards of macaroni art and science projects. I felt every eye flick to me, some curious, some wary. I straightened my jacket, smoothing the crease between my shoulders. This was my most important performance. In the weeks that followed, I reclaimed more than a role in my son's life. I stepped onto Fourth Axis's stage as its founder and CEO, no longer the anonymous specter. Our open-source platform became a movement. Schools invited us to speak about ethics in technology. The media painted us as a phoenix story, rising from betrayal to build something that uplifts thousands. Inside was a contract. Co-founder. Equal shares. Autonomy. No fine print. Just trust on paper where it counted. Inside, I raised my glass one final time. It didn't. It was a hit job. They wanted to remind the world who I had been. It was quiet. It was the sound of my legacy shattering. It was to rebuild. Later, in my study, I look at the framed photo on my desk, Marcus at age 2, laughing as he chased autumn leaves. Next to it, a second frame, a freshly signed letter marked, to be opened on 18th birthday. Leah set her hand on mine. You did. But now he's asking. He wants you. Leah smiled, but her eyes were wet. That's good. But you know this is bigger, right? He'll have questions. And other people will have opinions. Leah, let them think that. Marcus, my son in every sense but blood, was calling my name, reaching for me across a chasm I'd built in his defense. Most from people saying, I see you. I've been there. Let me help. My cousin. My dearest Marcus. My first night alone in the new apartment, I couldn't sleep. My mentor. My name is Ethan Cole. My wife. No bitterness. No blame. Just a father's promise. No questions. No script. No makeup. No prepped lighting. Just me. No shuffling of expensive shoes down marble hallways. No whispered lies over midnight phone calls. No Marcus waking up from a dream, calling me dad in that half-sleep voice that used to melt everything hard in me. No VC firms. No press releases. No flashy exposés. We recruited people who'd been burned like we had brilliant minds discarded by corrupt giants. A woman who cracked quantum code and got pushed out for asking why. A software prodigy whose AI work was stolen by a megacorp. A cyber sleuth who found election fraud and paid with his job. Not a letter of blame. A letter of truth. Not because of fear. Not even regret. Not from suits and glass towers. Not just for me, but for others like me. Not of a building. Not who I was becoming. Not with guns. With truth. Of a future. One night, Leah burst in, her phone shaking in her hand. Or worse, if he wouldn't remember me at all. Outside, vans came to life. Pause. People I trusted more than myself. Poor Ethan. Can't handle the pressure. Poor Ethan. Falling apart. Poor Ethan. Such a shame he had it all. Rain fell in fine, relentless threads against the window panes of my corner office. The city lights blurred into rivers of gold and red. I watched the downpour, feeling its weight not of water but of decisions carried on each droplet, decisions I had to make tonight. She checked the roster, gave a gentle smile. He's finishing lunch. Room 12B. She knew. She'd watched me wrestle with it since Cassandra's message. Every milestone, first day of kindergarten, Marcus's whispered good night, Dad, had been a ghost between us. She looked like she might cry, but she didn't. Cassandra never cried in public. She nodded. She signed it. She walked into that dusty warehouse space I'd rented on the west side of the city and didn't say a word for 10 full minutes. Just stared at the sketches pinned to the plywood walls. The prototype boards. The scattered, sleepless logic I had turned into a vision. Silence. So I staged my worst performance yet. A full-blown collapse at the anniversary gala. I slurred my words, toasted to ghosts, and watched Cassandra wince from the head table. So we rebuilt louder? Some from people who called me a fraud. Sometimes it costs everything. Sometimes it's the only way to save what's worth keeping. That evening I sat at my desk with an envelope. Inside lay the letter I'd written years ago, the one I'd sealed away until his 18th birthday. I pulled out a blank sheet of paper and began a new letter. That illusion began to crack the night I found a text on my wife's phone meant for my cousin, Adrian. That night I began to drink. Publicly. Sloppily. Enough that the whispers started. That was the heart of it. Not my ego, not revenge, not even justice. It was love. Simple, impossible love. That was the part no one tells you about revenge. That's what they needed to believe. That's when I gave the signal. A subtle nod to a man near the bar. He tapped his earpiece. That's when she showed up again. That's why I didn't fight for custody. I knew Cassandra would twist that into a new kind of war. Instead, I built something else, a trust. Quiet, secure, untouchable. Enough to give Marcus choices when he turned 18. And a letter. The boy I'd raised as my son for 3 years. The boy whose eyes lit up when I taught him to ride a bike. The boy who now called another man dad. The company I'd lost, that they stole out from under me, had been reborn on paper. Not as a revenge project, but as something different. Cleaner. Smarter. One without boardroom vultures, backdoor contracts, or blood money. The DNA test had been Adrian's final dagger. It was meant to break me. And for a while, it did. The first warning came 6 weeks in, a cease and desist letter. Anonymous sender. No law firm attached. Just a message typed in bold block letters. The gala was meant to celebrate a decade of ethical innovation. That was the slogan plastered across banners, whispered between board members, engraved into the polished marble underfoot. Ironic considering the real innovation that had been happening behind closed doors, backdated contracts, shell corporations, bribes masked as consulting fees. The headlines came first, then silence. The press wanted a face for the takedown, a symbol of betrayal turned justice. I denied every interview. Declined every op-ed. They called me a ghost hero. Said I vanished after setting the fire. The lights flickered. The music stopped. The name came to me in a dream. A plane without a wing doesn't fly. But a fourth axis? That's what lets it spin. Change direction. Escape gravity. The next morning was clear and cold, the kind of sky that promises both hope and reckoning. When I arrived at Little Brook Elementary, I parked on the far side, away from idling parents. I wanted nothing staged, nothing choreographed. The receptionist looked up. Mr. Cole? The silence that followed the raid was the loudest thing I've ever heard. The silence that followed was suffocating. The way your body knows something is over before your mind does. 1 second I was standing on the stage, giving what was supposed to be a simple toast. The next, there was a crash, a scream, and all heads turned to the back of the ballroom. Then one night, the doorbell rang. Then opened a live stream. Then she added almost too quietly. Then she looked at me. There was one truth no courtroom could untangle. They believed in the rebuild. They didn't know I was wearing a wire. They didn't know my assistant was a federal asset. They thought they'd won. They were survivors. Thousands of messages. Today I met you face to face again. Not as a memory, not as a ghost, but as your dad. Tonight, as I tuck Marcus into bed, he grips my hand and says, "Daddy, can you stay until I fall asleep?" Too quiet. Truth is, I didn't vanish. 2 weeks later, I stood in a courtroom. Not as a defendant, but as a cooperating witness. The prosecutors called me instrumental. The agents called me a ghost in plain sight. The media called me everything from a whistleblower to a calculated mastermind. I didn't care what name they gave me. Victor tried to blend into the crowd, that old chameleon instinct kicking in. It failed him. Victor went down hard, years of silent control unraveling in seconds as 2 agents locked him in cuffs and began reading charges that stretched longer than the speeches he used to give on ethics and leadership. They'd found documents in his office, accounts tied to dummy corporations in Belize, and messages, hundreds of them, spelling out the conspiracy in painful clarity. Victor, nodding. We built in the shadows. We didn't. We got funding. We pushed harder. We walked to a nearby park, the winter sun low in the sky. He chattered about school, how he built a volcano in science class, how he scored a goal at recess. I listened, asking questions, letting him fill in the 5 years I'd been absent in person. When I sealed the envelope, I felt whole for the first time in years.